Hey everyone, Karen the Warp Spinster here. Thank you for joining me and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to go back to doing some piecing, just some improv kind of piecing. And this is just a little teaser. It's going to be kind of wonky, I think 9 patches. This is something I started years and years ago and I still work on periodically. I will finish it. I'll put up a photo here of how it looked at some point. May look different now. But all I've been doing is just cutting 1.5 inch squares as I finish up various projects. And you can see that I used to use very different fabrics than you see me using now in these videos. But I love the effect that it has, especially from a distance. It looks quite scrappy here. And not planned scrap. This really is not. The only thing I watch for when I'm putting these 9 patches together is that I don't have the same fabric next to each other. I vary whether it is the 5 lights and 4 darks or 5 darks and 4 lights. Doesn't matter. It actually kind of depends on how many squares I have of anything. I may not have 5 of one square. So that becomes the 4 squares, and then I find something else that I have 5 squares of. So that is in progress, and it will continue for a while. I quit cutting 1.5 inch squares because this tin is full of 1.5 inch squares. I mean full. And then, as you can see, sorry, the rattly bag, I have plenty of others. And my next step on those then is to sort them out and pull out the same fabric so that I have bundles of 4 or 5 of each one, and then I put them together. Anyway, that's a whole other story. What I am dealing with now is all of this that I have just been tossing into this as I've been making these videos. So this is by no means all the scraps in my life. This is just what has accumulated while I've done videos, and actually while I'm doing my boondoggle quilt, I see some of them going in there too. And then I also have strips that I have separated out. So what I want to do is making these into strips of some sort. They don't have to be regimented like my traditional 9-patch quilt is. But this, for example, I can cut into a couple of short strips. Can be going like this, might be straight, might not be. One edge parallel to the other or not. And start doing strip sets, and then I'm going to cut them apart, and they are not going to be regular, I don't think. So I'm anticipating that there will be maybe some wonky blocks. Maybe I will square them up, maybe not. And things aren't going to meet. Corners aren't all going to meet. They may inadvertently at some point. And some things, obviously, I won't be able to use. I could, but it's certainly big enough to use in a 9-patch, but it is, I'm trying to be a little efficient, at least today, by making strip sets, and this isn't much of a strip to make a strip set. I do want to have, this isn't a postage stamp quilt in which it's just willy-nilly, anything next to anything. I do want it to be a 9-patch. So I want to alternate something. So for example, black and white, black, white, black and white as the alternating squares, and then brights. And the brights could be any color. They don't have to be the same one, I don't think. The alternating black and white, I think, will pull it into 9 patches. Not sure. We'll see how it goes. It may not end up looking like a 9-patch, and that's okay. So let's get started. I think I'll start out with some strips. Some of these are fairly regular, some are not, but let's see what happens. And then when I start cutting. So I don't know if I want to have multiple strip sets that I cut from for the same 9-patch block, or if I want to cut all of the 3 square sort of thing. Yeah, never mind. I'll explain it as I go. I'm not finding my words very well yet today, I guess. All right, I need to plug in my iron. I will eventually need to change the threading machine, my machine, because I've been using Invisible, but this is how we don't pre-plan things, right? So I have strips here that I can put together. I may have to look elsewhere for some black and white strips, but you can see these are not going to be even. And that's all right. So I will need some strips that are, oh, sorry, this stripe is going to drive your eyes crazy, but imagine a stripe here. And then this will get cut into, subcut into strips. Oh, that'll be interesting with that instead of having it this way. But anyway, all of this will come out as we're working. This is what improv is all about, right? Try to put my hands here so your eyes don't Google. And then, of course, the next strip will have to be 2 of the brights. Of course, the strips I pulled out are all black and white. So the alternating strips then will come from, let's see if I can find something that isn't a stripe so you don't go crazy. All right, just a little bit there. So I think this is going to turn out quite interesting. We shall see. So I am going to see what I can put together. Let me find a black and white strip here that I can use that is not a stripe. This, I think, might be a better strip. Maybe it's a little easier on your eyes, maybe not. And then I will do a strip of a non-stripe in black and white in between here. Do those strip sets, and then I'll come back. And I'm back, trying to make this as easy on your eyes as possible. A couple of things here just to note. One is that, you know, a smart person probably wouldn't be doing this fumbling around in public, but I make mistakes so you don't have to, unless you want to, or you want to make different mistakes. I used some Best Press on here. This might be a hand-dyed fabric, not sure, but it did discolor it. So just be warned, especially if you're using hand-dyed or a solid color, before you use anything on it, test it. I actually don't mind here. The model look is perfectly fine for my purposes, but just a reminder. All right, so I have these 2 strip sets. I did cut this one into a wedge shape rather than just having it straight. And this black and white dot is a little bit not straight, not parallel. Straight, but not parallel. So my plan here is to cut, I'm going to cut one set that is just straight and even. So I will have straight cuts across here, and they'll all be, say, probably want them to finish at maybe 1.5 inches. No, let's have them finish at 1 inch. So I will cut them 1.5 inches, and I'll cut them straight. Then we'll do a set where we cut them uneven widths but still straight, and then a set that's just wonky, and we'll see how they look. Maybe we want to combine them, maybe we don't know. We're just playing today. So first of all, I want to straighten up this left edge. I'm ambidextrous while cutting. Don't do this if you are not comfortable with that. What did I say? Finish at 1 inch. So, and I want this to be straight, so I'm finding a line that is straight on here, which this one is, and even with this, so that's 1/2 inch. Which one do I want to be the, we'll do just, this one is the center, and then this one, I will straighten this edge. It's actually not too bad. I could probably fake it, but let's straighten it for our purposes, and then 1.5 inches, and I will need 2 of these. I could have done it the other way where I did just 1 of these and 2 of those, but just a choice for today. All right, so I can do this and that, or this. And of course I have this left. So I have a choice here. What I think I'm probably going to do, and you'll notice this one is going to be very narrow when I finish by the time I take another 1/4 inch seam out of there. So I think what I'm going to do is even this out down here. It's not going to be square, it's going to be longer one way than the other, although not too bad because we still have seams there. But I want the full yellow up here. This one's going to get cut off to be very small. I need it to be more than 1/4 inch or it will get completely lost in the seam. So it will be very narrow, but in the same here. So I can make some adjustments. All right, I will sew that together, trim it, and we'll see what we've got. And here we have it. Also, I will note that I am pressing these seams open. If this were a planned quilt and a planned block and I knew which seams were going to be next to each other, then I could arrange it so that seams that meet are in folded in opposite directions or pressed in opposite directions so they butt up against each other without a lot of bulk. But because I don't know what these seams are going to be up against, I'm going to press them open. And I have done that. I have learned to do that also in the traditional 9 patch that I'm doing. Now, I will trim this so we can play with it, but another option that I think might be kind of cool, because this is going to come up a lot doing this if we aren't really taking care that these strip sets are going to be the same width, then we could, anytime we have this extra space here, sew in a piece of black or white before we sew these together so that we've got that background of black, which I think would be kind of cool. So we may do that on the next one. But this one we're going to trim. I really like that black in the background, and that will tie things together pretty well, I think. So we're going to trim this up, and I want this to be reasonably straight here. And again, this is going to be a very narrow strip when we finish, but that's all right. We aren't looking for symmetry and perfection here. We are going to have perfection in the wonkiness. It's my new motto, perfection in wonkiness. So there's a wonky 9 patch. Now for the next one, let's do the opposite and make this, what did I say I was doing? Different widths, but still straight. I don't know how much difference that's going to be by the time let me think about this. Different widths here. Yes, let's do it just because. All right, so this is going to now be cut 2 inches, and then this one I'm going to cut 1.5 inches. And then this one I will do as, let's do 1 inch. So there's going to be just a little bit of this one showing. And this time I'm going to pressing open on narrow strips doesn't last very well. This one I am going to leave these opposite each other instead of cattywampus. Do you say cattywampus or catty-cornered where you live? Or do you not use either one of them? That is the plan for this one. I could line up one of the seams here, like across here, and not the other one, which could be a little interesting too. And again, I could add that in. Do I want to add that in this time? Let's try doing that this time, shall we? See how that turns out. So I will add some black on here to match the width of those two. And here's the new piece. I have to say that it feels a little weird to be sewing 1/4 inch seams again. I've been doing so much applique piecing that it just feels foreign. Feels good, but it feels quite strange. This, I love the serendipitous nature of doing improv piecing, because look at this. That just happened on its own. That black stripe could have been one way either way and would still have been fine. This way we have this one little bit of symmetry in there, which I think is a lot of fun. So we have two different pieces. They probably would not go next to each other if I'm doing a scrap quilt, but we can see the differences of putting these two next to each other, across from each other instead of across the corners, different widths of the strips that we cut from the strip set, adding in this black background, I guess we could call it, or cutting it down to size. And I like both of them, actually. Now, so that's it for those two sets. Next up, what did I say we would do next? Oh yes, we're going to start doing odd cuts. This time, let's do 2 of this one and 1 of that one. And we're going, they don't, both sides have to be wonky. No, we're doing 2 of this one, aren't we? And it's difficult when they are not parallel cuts to have them equal width, but, and then this one, I kind of want to do wonky too on both sides. That would be a wedgie thing. That didn't sound good, sorry. Have it be a wedge thing. Okay, so and then again we have this, are we going to add black to the background, or are we going to cut that down to size? And it's not going to be straight, which I could either straighten it, or I think I'm going to add black pieces in here and have them be, here we go. So I will do it this way so that the black piece, I don't have black pieces on top and bottom, but just on one or the other. And then I have something else in mind. We'll see when we get to the trimming how that works out. And here we have this block, which I think is quite fun. I like it. So now we have 3 blocks from the same fabric strips. And in some ways they look very much alike because they're the same fabrics, but they're also different sizes, some straight, some not. My next plan, I want to introduce some curves. Yes, I've got some left on these strips, so I want to try curves. I also want to do curves when I'm doing the strip sets, But since we have some left on here, let's do some curves. I think, because I've decided I really like this background inserted, I think I'll add some black strips up here. Won't need them here. And then I'll be doing this to get the curves to match. They won't be very, they'll be pretty gentle curves, but I still think it would be better if I were to match them. So I will sew some strips on either side of, or I could do it just on one side, couldn't I? Let's try it on one side. And then we will try a couple of curves. Sorry. Lapses in my speaking while my brain is going overdrive. Add strips, Karen. On it. All right, now I'm going to place these on top of each other and cut the curve. That way I know I have a matching curve. And just to be on the safe side and to model safe behavior, I'm going to put on my safety gloves because I want to cut this pretty close. I'll still try to avoid the glove, of course. And I've got 2 layers that have all kinds of seam stuff, so it's going to take my hand to sort of keep it in line, and I don't want to do that with a bare hand. All right. Now I'm going to cut another curve. I don't want that same curve on the other side of this. So, nope, it's got to be here. I have to think about this. This is that side of the curve. This has to match up there. So I need a different curve over here. Okay. So, and I want it to be the opposite curve. This one's going this way, so I want this one to be that way, and maybe not the same curve. We'll see if I can manage to keep myself from doing the same sort of curve. Let's try to do it more like this. It straightens out up there. Should be able to use that for something, don't you think? And then I think I will cut that straight, but give it enough room that if I want to connect it to a block that I want to curve, then I can do that. And this is wonky going this way, so yeah, I'm gonna wait till I piece these 2 first. All right, so I'm going to do the gentle curves. I'm just going to flip this over and get the starting point here. This is a gentle curves, not going to be difficult. Don't have to trim the curves or anything. I'm going to start here and make sure that when I am watching my needle, I am not doing the 1/4 inch by the edge of the presser foot. Out here, because the presser foot is at a different place on the curve. I need to watch for the 1/4 inch, or however I'm measuring my 1/4 inch, where the needle is, not where the front of my presser foot is. Ordinarily, when I'm doing a seam, I'm watching here because I know if I feed it in here correctly and it's straight, it's going to be fine. But that isn't going to work with the curve because I'll exaggerate the curve a little bit. I'm a 1/4 inch away where the needle is, but over here, I'm inside the 1/4 inch. And I'm going to use needle down so that I don't lose my place or lose control of the situation entirely. I just go slowly. And also remember, when you're stitching these curves, you're going slowly, and I like to have the concave, I always get that backwards, no, I like to, when I'm stitching curves, I like to have the convex on top, and then as I'm stitching slowly, I'm just lifting this fabric up and moving it over. I'm not yanking it over, I'm not forcing it, I'm just lifting it up and moving it over, and then continue stitching. And stitching slowly but surely. And here we have a gently curved piece. And I can decide now if I want to leave this straight or if I want to cut it a little on the wonky side. I think I'm going to leave that decision until I start to put these blocks together, because I do not know what it might be next to and what might look best with that. A little more trimming here. Improv doesn't mean sloppy messy. Well, sometimes it does for me, but I eventually clean it up. And here are the pieces we have so far. And of course we can turn them the other way and get some more funky fun out of it. So this could be an interesting quilt in itself, just continuing with this same strip set. But let's see what happens when we start bringing more of the different colors in it, different black and white, and then have one that has wider strips of the black and white. Here the bright colors are predominant, which is okay, but let's see what happens if we make the black and white prints more predominant. And I will still insert the black. I'm really liking that, so we aren't losing bits of the 9 patches. I think that the background, whether it be black or white, will fade into the background, so to speak, and then these will pop out. So I think it's nice to have that. You get more of the wonky than if I had cut that off, maybe. This is kind of fun, but this one I think I would have liked to have done a non-parallel cut there and maybe a curve, but I like them all, honestly. But let's see if I can put together some more strip sets, and this time I'm going to do a curve in one of the pieces on the strip set. It's better to do that with a wider strip because then you have more leeway. So let me pull out some more fabrics. And lest I forget, I still have bits of these 2 strip sets that I can add in with others or do another block with. I am going to go black and white stripeless on these sets. I know, it's kind of mind-blowing. I'll give you a minute. This pink already has the curve built in, which is fabulous. I like that. And I'm not sure I want to put any other curve in there. First of all, I'm going to be running out of room there. And I can do another curve in here. For this one, I've decided to do something that's predominantly black on white instead of white on black, just to add in a little bit of contrast there. If I have any difference in the widths, I will continue to fill in with black background. Let me cut these 2 strips and I will sew those together, and then we'll talk about how we're going to cut these pieces. As I'm cutting these strips, this blue strip is quite wide, and I didn't want that strip set to have one that wide. So I did the curve in the middle of that, and now I actually have another piece I can use in another strip set. 2 more strip sets. Loving this curve here. This has gentler curves. This one is barely a curve. It's probably not going to read as one at all when we start cutting it into segments. This reminds me of the wave pieces that we did for the Alice quilt, where you cut them in wedges and then flip them and create waves. That would be something you could do with these too. But we're doing 9 patches today. So, how to cut these? I guess we could follow the same route that we did here, where we start with straight cuts. So the difference here is that we have curves in the original strip set. So let me square this up again. If you are not comfortable doing ambidextrous cutting, you would turn your mat or your 2 pieces, if you're right-handed, and cut there. If you're left-handed, this is perfect. The goal really is to try to have as much fabric as possible underneath the ruler so that it's holding it and it's less likely to mess around. Plus, you've got a longer length to check to make sure you're straight when you have straight edges, which I don't here. So originally we did them with even, correct? I think we did them with even widths. And I think we're going to make this one the one that has 2 strips from it. So we will end up with something like that, or like that. And I'm going to add a black strip in. What do you think? Top or bottom? Or I could trim them. Do that and then just trim. Can't lose any more off here. This is barely going to escape the seam. So if we do it like we did the other one, then I should kind of split the difference, although this one has to. And then trim it. So that's what we did with the first one, which is this one. But I kind of hate to. Now we're going to do it the same, just so we have comparison. We've got a little bit, the curves end up looking kind of straight actually in a lot of cases, depending on how wide you cut this. But I think that's okay. So I am going to sew it together like this, and then I can trim these 2 and not lose a lot off of that, more than I can afford to lose. If I cut any off that, then I've lost it completely in the seam. I just had a thought as I was getting ready to trim this. I will still trim this, but I think I might want a black strip across these 2 pieces. In the past, we've done it just across 1 strip set, but I think I might want to do that across these 2. So I will trim this, maybe straight. Well, first of all, I'm going to release this seam back a ways, and I'll trim it maybe straight, maybe not, maybe not. I think I'll do something like that, and add the black strip in and then re-sew that seam. So this one's a little different and I like it. It's larger for one thing, but it has straight edges along here. But we've got all kinds of interesting things going on in here, even though we've got straight lines through there. So that's kind of fun. See how these are going to stack up against these guys. And of course you would have many different strip sets, so you have more options for combining them. I think these aren't really going to, some of them at least. This one does not read as a 9 patch to me. That one kind of does. This one definitely does as a sort of unusual 9 patch. Putting in the background sort of takes that away. So as I'm looking at it, I need to decide if I want it to definitely look like wonky 9 patches, in which case I need to trim them down like this, or do I want them to be a completely different thing? I'm not sure. I'm just going to keep making blocks and see how I feel about that. I think it's kind of fun just as a scrappy anything goes. And then I could also do one that is more of just a wonky 9 patch. I'm really loving this one. Although it's really kind of just an insert, strip inserted within a strip set. Ooh, that'd be a fun thing to play with too. Have some wider strip sets, insert narrow, various narrow strips into the middle of it. Say if you've got consistent fabrics throughout and this is what changes. Or that stays the same and these change. Thought for another day. You know, sometimes I lie awake at night thinking, what am I going to do this week? I don't know what I'm going to do. I probably run dry on ideas, and then something comes to me. One day, one week, if you find that I have not posted a video, it's because the well has run dry. All right. I am having some fun, though, with just rethinking or just doing improv wonky things of fairly simple traditional blocks like this 9 patch, which is turning into something else entirely. This does not look like a 9 patch at all, does it? Because we've added that in. And even before we added that in, if we had cut that off, it might look more like a 9 patch. It definitely looks more like a 9 patch. I don't know if anyone would register as a 9 patch, especially when it's put next to other things. Things to think about, but we have a couple more blocks to make, don't we? These are fun, and I just needed to have some fun today. All right, let's do a couple of wonky cuts, non-parallel cuts. And again, this is not ideal that I do not have most of the fabric under the ruler, but I don't necessarily need to be very accurate here. And I'm still keeping my fingers out of the way. All right, shall we do one with 2 of these and 1 of that? Oh, that would have been a good one to catch a better part of the curve, but here we are. Now we're doing 2 of this one. Losing track of where I am, not an unusual state here. Well, let's do one that's like this. This is going to be interesting. And I've got that lovely bit of curve there, but I'm going to lose it in the seam. Bummer. Okay. That's all part of improv. Stuff doesn't always go as planned. If we do that, or we could do that. I think I want to do that. And I think I'm not going to add the black in here. I'm just going to sew these and then trim. These have a curvy sort of nature in my brain, so I'm going to trim those as curves, and when I'm putting it together I may well trim them straight, but this way I'm minimizing the amount of fabric that I'm cutting off here without jeopardizing making this straight later on if I want to. So now we have a 9 patch that is really not looking very 9 patchy, is it? It's a 9 patch, just not traditional. And I like it. So our last one then is going to be 2 curved pieces. Should we try putting one of these with this? Or this? Nope, we're going to stick with this. I sort of had a plan, which has slowly been falling apart as I've gone along. Anyway, this is going to be a really cool curve. That one I want to make pretty wide when I get to that point. But here we're doing a curve, and I want the curves to match. So, trying not to waste too much, but here we are. So we will just do a little curve here, a little bit for my crumb bin, and then, oh, I didn't do that right. So there we go. Now at this end I'm going to need, I should be able to just do it like this, right? And then I've got another curve here and that piece fits in. Yes, all right, I have to think about this. And let's make this pretty curvy. We'll see how that goes. So, no, I didn't do it right. I didn't do it right, but I love that curve. All right, so this one is staying, and this one, you were shouting at me, weren't you? No, that's wrong, that's wrong. So I want a piece, I love this though. That's got to do something. This side then, oh, what I could do is flip this over now and make this. Tell me if I'm going wrong here, people. Tell me if I'm going wrong. We may just be creating pieces that we're using elsewhere, I don't know. So we've got a piece here and a piece there. Phew. This one I'm going to just cut a little wonky like this. That piece I may just leave that way and see where it ends up being, what its neighbor is going to look like. Now, am I going to want to trim these, or do I want to add some black strip in? It's a pretty regular curve, so I think I can fake it like that. Put a black strip up there, maybe. I get the feeling that's just a little too wide up there. If we cut that there, it's better when it isn't quite so wide up there, so here we go. really wasting fabric because these were scraps to begin with, so that's a fun little piece. There we are, and we have that fun curve here. I think I'll put just a small black piece here so I don't lose this curve effect. I really like that curve effect. And then I will sew that together. I have stitched that black piece on, and now I need to match up the curve on the pieces on either side of it. In fact, I may recut the curve because, as you can see, since I've shifted it, it wasn't a regular curve, so I will need to recut that one. But this one, I will cut here, and then this one will get cut here. And this is why one wears, this is a klutz glove from Fons and Porter, but there are other safety gloves there too. And then I can finish out that curve. And then I will stitch those curves. I'll have a little bit of trimming to do yet, but I can live with that. That's going to be a fun one. I like it. I like that shape. I ended up with another one of those somewhere when I made the error in my cutting, and I'm going to be using that. I may end up doing a piece that just has this kind of curve going on. Kind of a tumbling block, but improv curve. Well, hasn't run dry quite yet. Our very curvy block, I like a lot. Because this was going to be so narrow down here, this black insert, I decided to use a narrower seam than usual. Doing that so that I wouldn't lose too much of that, or this yellow for that matter, because I like that pop. Again, I did just a gentle curve up here, which in the end I may want to be straight, but for now that gives me more options. And here is what we made with that strip set. A little bit left over, so we can probably do one more, and of course we can always combine it with another strip set. I really like the colors in this one. These are okay, but it's tending more toward a jewel tone, and I'm really liking these colors. But you know me and braids. And if we put all of our blocks out, then we have quite an assortment. I don't know if I can get them all on screen. Am I missing one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Nope, I think that's it. So here is what we accomplished today. Learned some things, tried some new things, and then of course there are decisions to make. More blocks to make, but then decisions to make, and maybe decisions to make before making more blocks. Do you want these to look more like a nine patch? Or do you want it to just go wild and crazy? Either one would be okay. You just have to decide which you like. With these, I'm really liking the black background. With these, I didn't do as much of that, and I like that too. There's this one piece, and that just sort of makes it look quite different, I think. So as always, I have pondering to do on these things. Not churning out a quilt today. But we have made some progress, learned some things, used up some of my scrap strips, which I'm always happy about. So I hope you had some fun today, thought of some things that you would like to do with this perhaps, or even if you just said, yeah, no, not for me, then, you've learned something. I had a lot of fun today. I appreciate your patience while my brain and mouth were not working at the same time, and when my brain, frankly, wasn't working very hard at all. Next week, I'm not sure. I might pursue this a little bit more, or this concept where you just insert the narrow strip in there. I'm not sure. These may turn into 2 different quilts, or, no quilts at all, or I might add more to it. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what the well feels like next week. I hope to see you there next week. Please like and subscribe. And I will see you next week. In the meantime, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace out.